Are you looking for new books to read? Do you like finding a new special author? Are you tired of the same old books from the same old authors? Well then, welcome to Discovered Wordsmiths, a podcast where you can hear from fantastic new authors. Join Stephen Schneider as he finds and talks to authors you may not know, but authors that have worked hard to write great new books. Hear about their book and why you should check it out. So sit back and listen to today's Discovered Wordsmith.
You can hear me okay?
Yep.
Perfect. Yeah, I've been having microphone trouble, so I stole my son's microphone to try and see how that works.
Well, last time I tried to plug in something separate, it didn't work, and it just seemed to be actually the Mac one seems to work best of all.
That's weird, but agreed. I keep mine hidden. It's right here. All right, let me make sure I'm kind of centered here. All right, we're all good. So, second interview. This is great. I don't really have too much planned talk. Just find out how things are going. So, whatever path it leads us. So, and we've done this, so this is great. If you're ready, we'll just get going and chat a little bit about what's been going on.
Okay.
Great. Well, Vicky, officially, welcome to Discovered Wordsmiths, your second time on the podcast. I'm very excited to talk to you, and we see each other this time. We didn't before. Last time we talked, it was clear back on episode 20. That was like a year ago. So it's really good to see you. Welcome.
Thanks for having me back. And wow, what a year it's been. I remember when we spoke, it was back in August, 2020. And in the UK, we thought things were getting better and we were all going to, moving out of this. And then, oh my goodness, what a year it has been with more homeschooling and lots of traveling with children and COVID and all the rest of it. So I think we all just need a pat on the back actually for getting through it and doing what we can. But I know you've been really busy this year.
Yeah, the podcast has been doing a lot. I've done a lot with my writing. And how about you? Have you been getting more writing in?
I have, and I followed you on the Dialogue Doctor podcast because
nice.
I went in and had Jeff and did some stuff with him on characterization and dialogue, which is just brilliant because I love sort of writing dialogue first drafts when I really get into the groove and then go back and add in all the other details. And I think you were just ahead of me on that one.
Nice. Well, good. That'd be great. Let's talk about that a second because I know Jeff. I've met him. We've been at a conference together and I've done a couple things with him. And he's got a great concept. So real quick for everybody listening, Jeff works with a company that creates training videos and uses AI and he writes dialogue that then gets spoken by characters or whatever. And so he's got to write realistic dialogue for this feedback. And a lot of this is using the AI and some of the new technologies so that the characters react to what you're saying. So what Jeff offers for authors is a dialogue overview. He doesn't look at the development of the story too much. He looks at the dialogue, how that affects the overall and your characters. So how was your experience with him? What did you think?
It was brilliant. So I get a bit carried away with all my characters and I do these huge scenes where I love lots of movement and lots of people. So I had a scene with about 5 or 6 different characters. And so he was really helping me get the voice for each character different with the different mannerisms that they had. So it really going back to what makes them tick. So someone might be very touchy-feely, someone who's anxious might fiddle with things, somebody might sit back, be quite quiet, and then just say something really poignant. And that really, really gives depth to the writing, and that really helps. And so what I did from that, and then I listened to Jeff's podcasts as well, is when I've started my new series, I started with my characters first. So I developed my characters and I had another session with Jeff and I was learning some more about sort of shadow characters. So having a protagonist who has a particular issue, particular backstory, and then having other characters who shadow that in a way, in a good way, in a bad way. So again, you can create more depth in the story. Now, I haven't necessarily stuck to it as a right through, but it's always there in my mind. And I think, and that has helped me. So yes, I started character first in the new series and taken on board what Jess told me.
Nice, good. Well, I'm glad that helped you out. And there you go. I'll tell Jeff we're pushing his service and podcast, so we'll just hit him up for the kickbacks next time. So last time we talked about Foul Murder, which was a unique little cozy mystery type book set in Africa, right? If I remember right.
Yep, Kenya.
Right, Kenya. Okay. So you just mentioned a new series. So tell us about what you've worked on since last year.
So I'm at the moment, I'm just about to launch the sixth book in that cozy series based in Kenya. So by the time this
Nice.
comes out, that will have launched. So yeah, so I've gone on very well. So I launched Foul Murder back in August last year, and then I've kept on writing. And yeah, so this is the sixth in that series, and it's gone well. And I've got a core group of readers who really like Africa and what I'm doing. But I realised that to hit the mainstream cozy market, I need to have a setting which is a little bit closer to home. I don't know anything about America. I lived in the UK, so my new series is going to be set in the UK. So what I've tried to do, I suppose, is take what I've learned from the last series, and I'm trying to build it into my next series, which I've written a small prologue, a reader magnet, and now I'm into book one, which I'm writing during NaNoWriMo, so that's keeping me going.
Oh, nice. Oh, there's a lot there. So I love that because we hear a lot about like what Chris Fox says, right to market. And Shawnee, John, and Dave, I think, talk about that, writing rapidly and what people want. And I think some people misunderstand right to market. They take it as you find out what's popular and hot and you write something for that and get it out. But that's not really what it means. It's what you've been learning that, you wrote some great books set in Kenya, but because of the setting, not as many people were gravitating towards it, but they gravitate more towards your type of book set in England or whatever. So you are writing to market, but you're not doing it like, oh, what's hot. It's what the people in your genre want to read, and you're giving that to them. So, what are some other things you found that people like and you're changing or doing different?
The people certainly like the characterization, which we've already talked about, although I can get a little bit serious about it. So I go back and I'm trying to do more humor, and I'm trying to give a lot of my characters a comedy element. So that they've got little ticks, one knocks things over. One is a doctor who goes around in cycle gear because he believes that what's good for the heart is good for the mind, and good, and better for his patients. And also, because I write a lot of characters, it's to differentiate each one, because I know that my readers in one particular book got a little confused who they were. So I thought, okay, so that is why. And it's not necessarily what a character looks like, it's what a character, it's how it goes back to what Jeff does. It says really it's how that character speaks and acts that portrays them. So again, I suppose it's depth in story. And and I mean, it's difficult, isn't it? Because you do try and write to market, and you know all the things you should be doing, but when you're sitting at the desk on your own, you you know what comes out of your brain and you put on the paper is your, I suppose it's your voice. I mean, that's what people call it, isn't it? It's your voice, and my voice is different from everybody else's, and it might not be what everybody wants at the moment. And that is one reason why I go back and I just try and tweak things ever so slightly, just to try and make it maybe a little bit more humorous, or to add a little bit extra to the dialogue. But I'm not a great one for going back and doing huge edits, so I'm very clean. So I will go back. So today I wrote my words, I went back over it twice, tidied it up, and then that will be it. And I won't go back in it until I've finished the whole thing and I'm reading through it.
Nice. And what you were saying also is another important lesson is you got to write your own voice and discover that. But to do that, you have to write a lot. I know a lot of people have that. I don't know, maybe it's the success mind book like Stephen King or J.K. Rowling. Oh, I want a book out. I'm going to be big and famous. But it seems the more I talk to authors, the more I see what's going on. You just keep writing, and every book you work on improving. and making it better and what people want. And that's how you get the long term success for the most part. Yeah, you'll always have a couple outliers, but
Absolutely. But then you often find that the people who the outliers, you don't know what they've done before under a different pen name or as a journalist or as a ghostwriter. I mean, there's so much behind people that they've done so much more. I mean, they talk about these authors. I've heard about traditional authors who've been called an overnight success in 15 years. Because the first book that gets published is not necessarily the first book that they've written. And so, a lot of traditional authors have had to go and they failed with their first, second, third, whatever number of books, and so they maybe got their sixth book accepted. But that is the decision of an editor and a publishing house, and whether that should be published. The joy we have as indie authors is that we have to put ourselves out there. We put our books out there, but it is our readers who make that decision. So we don't have the gatekeepers. We have the readers who can tell us and give us a feedback on what we're writing, and I think that is very important. And I've learned a huge amount. So recently I have gone back and rewritten bits of my first book, Foul Murder. Now I've not changed the plot or anything else like that, but I've just gone through and I've edited some of the style, and I've realized that when I first wrote it, I mean, I don't have an MA or anything in English or any of that. I just have GCSEs. But I still was trying to do what my teachers are telling my boys they should be doing at school now, and it's not. So I've relaxed a lot more, and I'm trying to tell the story, and I'm not worried about similes and metaphors and what all of those need, but just tell a good story. And so I relaxed and cleared up my writing and made it flow a bit easier. But it was interesting. So yeah, I mean, I wrote my first book in, I don't know, 8 or 9 months, but 2 years later, I've gone back and done it again. And because it's a series starter, and because again, as indie authors, our books are there and we can keep promoting them for as long as we like. I think that's important. So I've written 6 books in a series that allows me to get 2 3-book box sets, 1 6-book box set. So although this will be my last release for a while this year, next year I will keep releasing, and I now need to find specific readers who like that book, those type of books, and I can try different tactics to market to them while moving forward with another series.
nice. And um, my brain froze. I was listening to what you were saying. I hate when that happens.
Sorry,
Um,
too much.
you said you did some editing on your first book, uh,
Yeah.
and I think that's an interesting something that you can do nowadays. For example, video games, which I play, and I'm doing some things with the video stories. When they come out, there's what they call a first day one patch, and a lot of video games get a day one patch because when they are ready to produce the disc, it's like 4 or 5 months ahead of time. So that's 4 or 5 months that the developers are still working on fixing, adjusting, changing. And when the disc comes out, they still have a digital patch to download. What I'm getting at is with today's market, where mostly it seems to be ebooks, especially during COVID, that you can go back to a book you wrote 3 years ago and say, I need to fix this. I need to adjust it for good or bad. Science isn't evil. It's not necessarily good. It's
Mm.
how you use it. Same with this. I could see people changing their books forever and ever and ever. And people are like, I'm not going to read this again. And he's changed it 10 times. And that might turn them off. But if somebody is just now getting your book, they've got the best version of it. It's almost like the director's cut version because
Yeah,
change.
exactly. It's because it's you're trying. I push. Well, very little marketing and advertising I do. It is to that book one. It is my workhorse, and so that now needs to reflect where my writing is. But going back to your point before about writing lots, I wouldn't have been able to make those changes to that first book if I had not written the subsequent books and learnt what I'd done there. And I think new writers, well, on what you were saying, they want the first book to be perfect because it's often the book of their heart. And they spend a lot of time, they've spent months, maybe years writing that book. It's a real thing. And it's great. It's fantastic because it is a real achievement to complete the first book. But the writing does tend to improve as you go forward and you find your voice and you work out the mistakes and you learn the craft just as you would do in any business.
Right. Agreed. And you mentioned marketing. What are you doing to market the book, get the word out?
I concentrate mostly on my mailing list. So I had right at the beginning, I had a novella, and then I decided I actually wanted to write the novella again into my main series. So my first book, Fowl Murder, is now given away free for mailing list subscribers, and then it's. But what I also do is say, so for instance, now when I'm launching book 6, so I'm not going to spend a fortune on it. So I'm doing, I think, actually probably only one promotion site, but that site is to Foul Murder, and it's to Foul Murder as a free download for the mailing list. The thing is, it still gets my whole series seen, and people who don't want to download it will actually go and buy it because it's only 99 cents on the store, and so I get an increase in sales as well. And for me, I like that. I would prefer, I think I do, yeah, I prefer to have people on my mailing list, and I do have people buying my book in a way because they're in the ecosystem, and then they're there for the longer term, and I've got a chance to get to know them. They get to know me, and then the relationship builds, and then hopefully as I write more books, they will know me and trust me and buy more from me.
Right. And I think what you just said is very important. I hear that from a lot of authors, and that's why the perma-free is what's used, because, oh, okay, I sold a book and I got 70 cents from it, or I can give it to them, get them on my mailing list, and then they buy 4 or 5 more books this year, and you make $10, $20 each person, whatever it happens to be. So that's another great strategy. How did you get people on your mailing list? Just putting the book out there and asking them to sign up to get the book, or were there other ways when you started?
When I very first started in May 2020, when I put my novella out there, I had been doing Mark Dawson's 101 course. And so I did learn a bit about doing Facebook ads, and I ran some Facebook ads to the giveaway. And it was brilliant because nobody else, a lot of people weren't doing Facebook ads. So it was actually really cheap. Um, and that was fantastic because I got some really really good initial readers who are now, like, I call them my aunties, who are on my advanced reader team and my Facebook readers group, and they help me and they give me suggestions. So that was fantastic. I've then joined BookFunnel, and I did Story Origin at one stage, and did the group promotions where you in my mailing list I promote the giveaway or whatever it is to my readers, and others in the giveaway will promote. We'll also do that, and the idea is that readers can look at other authors' books and join their mailing lists, and it grows the whole ecosystem.
Got it. And so I think I really need to start reaching out and getting some sponsorship. I mean, we're pushing Jeff Elkins and his dialogue doctor. You mentioned Mark Dawson and the self-publishing course. So I think I need some sponsors on here. Geez, I mentioned Jay Thorne, the Author Success Mastermind, just about every episode. So,
Yeah.
come on, guys! Everybody's talking about you, which they probably are.
Well, there again, like you're doing the podcast for nothing, and Jay Thorne and Jav Elkin and Mark Dawson, they're also doing
Yeah.
podcasts, and Joanna Penn, who is how I first started. I mean, they're we've learned from them. I certainly learned huge amounts from them, and the free content which they have put out there, and isn't that great in the end? Isn't, in the indie author world, isn't the one thing I've learned is all these fantastic people who are there to help.
Yes.
It's not so much a competition because somebody can read all my books, but that's not going to last very long. So they're going to want to read someone else's book. So it's a help mentality rather than a fear mentality of, oh, I can't the competition.
And it's I find it humorous because you've mentioned several things you've learned, which are all things I've heard say other places or similar things, and yet we all still go and buy the courses. We still buy the books. That's one of my jokes. Like, if you just bought your 22nd craft book on writing this month and you haven't read the other 21, you might be a writer. I mean, isn't that what we do? I mean, I pulled out a book. I said, when did I get this book? I don't even remember, and I haven't read it. So I just find, and the podcasts, everybody you mentioned, we listen to, there's so much information. You can get everything you need pretty much from writing. Most of those aren't so much focused on craft, but then you've got like KM Weiland, who does a lot of craft stuff. So you can get a little of everything just with free podcasts. So there you go.
Yeah, it's a great starting point. I mean, and then budgeting and things is something I've had to really come to terms with. And so trying to find that information and where you can get it inexpensively is very important, and not spending a fortune on very expensive courses which you then forget to take.
Right, right. Um, so you mentioned NaNoWriMo. Um, why did you want to do that after all this time, and how's it going?
So NaNoWriMo, in case anyone doesn't know, but most authors probably do, is national, or I suppose in my case, international novel writing month. And it was how I got my first book really not completed, but to that stage where I then freewheeled to the end. And it's just it's a really good month of focusing on writing. I've got lots of other things going on at the moment, and so but you go into your screen on the NaNoWriMo website, and every day you update your word count, and it makes, I suppose, it makes you accountable. There's lots of software to do it. I'm quite a focused person. I don't necessarily need to do it, but it still it just helps. It reboots, and it sets me on course, and it's part, again, it's supporting an initiative which is helping writers or that in the in the entire community.
Right. Yeah. I think a lot of writers look forward to it and jump into it. I know a couple in the mastermind group I'm in, they are using NaNoWriMo just to get the first draft of their next story done. Push myself, get it done. And what a lot of people I hear, they found that just getting that first draft done and then worrying about editing or fixing it afterwards is more important than trying to make it perfect as you're writing it. So what's your typical writing? You said you write, you do a little bit, but then you re-edit the whole book at the end. Is that what you've always done, or have you found that changed from what you did originally?
In a way, every book changes. Every book I do a little bit differently. To start with, my first book, I wrote and got completely stuck, and wrote a bit more and got stuck, and went on a course, and then got some help, and then got an editor who helped me and got through to the end of it. Actually, my second book was probably the easiest, and probably one of the best books I've written, and I cracked that out in 6 weeks, just before the pandemic last year. I don't know why. I just got the story, I got into it, and I just got in the groove, and I wrote it. But now what I tend to do, so I'm a very organized person, so I thought I would be a real plotter. And I've had to, and I know Jay Thorne, I think he's talked about this, is becoming more of a discovery writer and less as a plotter as you go on, and allowing things to flow a little bit more, being a bit more discovery writer. So I'll have an idea, because mine are murders, I'll have an idea who gets murdered and why, and then I try and have some suspects, because if I don't have some suspects, I start to wander all over the place. So I'll have some suspects, and I will spend a maximum of a week in plotting and research phase, and then I get on with it, because otherwise I've got a tendency to keep going in the research stage and not write. And then once I start writing, then I can look and I'll start researching. But I know a lot of people, they just go out and that's it. They just do it, and they do their entire first draft, and then they come back and they spend a lot of time. I don't. I tend to write, and then I'm doing a challenge with Dean Wesley Smith at the moment, writing a novel every 2 months. And so he talks about, and I've just read his Into the Dark, where he's very much about not plotting, but he goes back and he cycles back, and I think that's what I do. So I'll write and then I'll cycle back, and particularly as I'm quite dyslexic, and my spell check causes complete nonsense on the page. So if I don't go back and check my words out, I won't be able to understand what I've written. So I will cycle back, probably I'll write a chapter, half a chapter, go back, check it through, then keep on going. And then at the end of the day, or if I'm just too tired the next day, I will have that chapter completed. And yet further on in the book, I might need to drop a clue back in, so I can go back and do that. But yeah, I suppose, and what is different this time is that I know that I need to add those, I suppose, the cherries on the top. The go back in and just check some of my voices, my more comedy character voices. I'll need to go back and get in more into their heads, and write a little bit more extreme. I think that's what it is. It's probably because it's probably going on and on, and I just need to add some, pull it about a bit, add some funnier elements, some extreme elements, make it a little bit more entertaining.
And I think what you said about the groove, the flow is important, and the mindset. I think sometimes we get in our own heads too much, get nervous or want everything to be perfect or whatever it happens to be. Because I know the first weekend where I said, you know what, I got this book I'm going to write. And I sat down, didn't have my kids for the weekend, and my goal was just to write that weekend. And I started Friday night, and by Sunday afternoon, I had over 15,000 words, just flew right through it. And since then, I've never been able to do that again because I think mindset wise in my head, I've gotten, oh, no one's going to like this. Oh, this isn't that good. And, whatever it all happens to be that we all do in our own heads. But those times when I can just tune everything out, forget about it, and just flow, and it just comes, those are always the best writing. So, it's one of those things I think we all got to work on and let go a little bit. Sometimes we get too down on ourselves, I guess you could say. We're too strict about what we're doing. Just let it go, like you said.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's when I become more dialogue focused. And I heard someone recently said it's like talking heads, but I think it is. I'm quite slow to start with when I get going because I don't have a feel for my characters. I can't feel their actions, what that how they are, how they would react to something. But once I'm inside their heads and I can do that, then I can start to see them. So I suddenly speeded up. So for me, I wrote 2,500 words today, which is quite a lot for me to write in one day. I am quite a slow writer, but that came quite quickly because I knew the scene and it was very much interaction. And so it became much quicker. And then I did go back when I went back early this afternoon. It was adding in those actions because I also like my scenes to be sort of quite fluid and people doing things and not just sitting there drinking coffee.
So I thought of a question for your series. Um, is it the same characters throughout, or is each one a separate characters? Just uh, how are they connected? I guess.
So the first series with a main character. So the first series had an elderly protagonist, and then she had quite a number of sidekicks who came in and out and helped her in different ways. And in that one, I had a couple of other POV voices from a couple of these younger characters who, because she wasn't always there and able to see everything. In this series, you mentioned KM Wyland, and she's done, again, here we go, promotion, but she has done some amazing podcasts this year about character art, character
Yes.
types, the heroes and the hero's arc, but then who are the people who go with it, and the mage and the king and all this thing, which is quite blew my mind. So I did a lot of work on that, and so each of my books now. So my first my initial book, that which is going to be the Reader Magnet, that is based on a heroine's journey, and so that gives me a bit of structure. And then this book is based on the first part of the hero's journey, although it's a female protagonist, because that doesn't matter. And it's the call to action, that she is to leave her is she leaving her old life, and how she does that. So again, I'm structuring that, and I hope by learning all these craft things and putting them in, it makes my writing deeper. But who knows?
Well, if you're working on improving and you're continuing to write, that seems to be the perfect combination. Don't worry so much about what you did right and what's wrong with it. Just take what you learned and move on. It seems to be the theme here today.
Yeah. Yes. And I think, yeah, I think that's right. And I know Dean Wesley Smith would very much say that is get on, write the next book. And also, if you're like me and you've got a limited budget, when we go back to back to the marketing, of course, every time, if I release a book, I've been releasing a book every 3 months. That is great, and so I can start to see, just now I can start to see my sales dip off and then they will start, they will rise again this weekend and keep going, and then I just do some Amazon ads to keep that ticking over, and one or two promos, and then I keep going until the next book release. And I guess that's why people do rapid release, because each book is the best way to market your last book.
Right, exactly. So Well, Vicky, it's been really great catching up with you, finding out what's been going on. I'm glad to hear you're still writing, and it seems to be going well. Before we go, I mean, you've already given tons of advice on what you've been doing the last couple years. But do you have any advice for new reader or new writers that we haven't talked about yet?
Well, absolutely loads. I mean, so much so that I'm actually a little bit like you, venturing out, and I'm going to be doing more on the non-fiction and helping writers side. I'm just setting up a website, Shoestring Publishing, to help writers get started, and also those writers who, like me, are going along and wanting to produce more and finding that the costs are greater than the sales, but want to keep the product going. And then, and I know, and ideas on how to introduce or buy covers, like pre-made covers, or I think Jay Thorne. I think, in fact, it was one of Jay's 100 covers. I think, is it that he? It was one of his cover recommendations that has actually produced my non-fiction book cover. And so, I'm going to do a series of blogs and then eventually a book on all the bits and pieces to help people get published to start with, because you can write a book, but it's not so easy to then know, how do I go from writing a book to publishing a book, and all the steps to go through, and without spending the monthly grocery bill or getting into huge amounts of debt.
Yes,
So
right. Well, please
that would
send
be
me
my
a
next
link
thing.
about that, and we'll include that for anyone interested. That'd be great.
Thank you very
Yeah.
much. That's great. And good luck with all your ventures. And sometime I think you'll need to tell us all about your work you're doing with JD Barker, because I'm really fascinated about
Oh,
that.
yeah. Maybe I'll talk a little bit about that. We actually did it for several months, but we're not doing it anymore. He's cutting out a lot of his mentoring, but I did get to meet him in person uh, at
Great.
the Career Author Summit in September with Jay Thorne and Zach.
Yeah.
But JD was there. So, I mean, if nothing else, I got to sit and have breakfast 2 days in a row with a USA Today bestseller. So, I mean, just that alone, you can't complain, But yeah, maybe I'll. I was thinking of doing an update on what I've been doing after some of these, but I've had so many interviews, so many second interviews, and a few other things that I don't know when that'll come out. I mean, I've got quite a few in the queue right now, so it's a good thing.
Maybe a yearly catch up or
Yes,
coverall or something, right at the end, either that or the beginning of the new year. But yeah, quite good, I suppose, in December to do. And this is
that's
everything that we've
true.
achieved this year.
That's very true. I mean, I could put it as like a out of the order bonus episode, but that sounds a little egotistical. The bonus episode is all about me. Yeah, okay. So
Yeah, but like everybody else, I mean, you're learning, and you've learned so much from all the different authors that you've had on the podcasts, and as well as the own work that you've done.
yeah, there's a lot of info over the last 2 year and a half or so. Yeah, whole lot.
Yeah,
So, all
yeah.
right. Well, Vicky, it's been great talking. I appreciate it. You have a wonderful day and good luck with NaNoWriMo.
Thank you very much, and good luck with your podcast. And well done to you, because there's not many podcasts keep going for this long, and you're storming away.
That's true. I mean, by the time everything I've got already scheduled is going to be almost episode 100, and
Wow.
I've
That's when you do your catch
there
up,
we
episode
There
100.
we go. And I've also talked to a publicist who's going to be on the podcast, and we're working out a schedule for like 2 or 3 interviews a month just from him. So between that,
Great.
people I get from Jay Thorne and uh, uh, um, James L. Rubart, he's got his training academy in Washington. I get some people from there just from that. I started off
Yeah.
going to NetGalley and looking for all the new books released, and oh, that looks interesting, and I'd reach out to authors. That's probably, I think, how I got a hold of you.
Yeah, Reedsy, I think, was how you
Reedsy,
got through.
that's
We got
right.
through.
Yes, I haven't even
Another great site which we can promote.
right, and I haven't even done that because I've had people contacting me. So
Yeah,
perfect. I love that. That's what That's the whole idea. It feeds on self. It
yeah,
helps everybody. So
yeah. No, brilliant. Well done, you.
thank you. I
Okay.
appreciate that. All right.
Thank you very much. It's been great chatting to you
You
again.
too.
Thank you for listening to Discovered Wordsmiths. Come back next week and listen to another author discuss the road they've traveled, and maybe, sometime in the near future, it might be you.